Welcome back to another edition of Sports Take. Told you guys I was going to try to be back on a more regular basis, and that is my plan going forward. Before jumping into what I wanted to get to on this episode, mention right off the top, if you have a hot take that you'd like to unleash or have it rated or talked about, you can call or text 424-30-SK-POD. That's 424-307-5763 for rate a take. Love to get some messages and some voicemails in there that I can play on the podcast going forward for your hot takes for the Take Volcano, and we can properly rate those takes. So again, that number is 424-30-SK-POD, 424-307-5763. Feels weird being back during what is commonly referred to as and looked at as the slow time of any sports season. It's obviously no football. Baseball just wrapping up their All-Star break this last week. Really, the only thing going on is the WNBA, the World Cup wrapping up, but even those, we have left the high of multiple games every day. And when this is coming out today, on Sunday, July 19th, the final is being played. Obviously, I'm recording a little bit before that, so I don't know the outcome. But as I mentioned on the last episode of Sports Tate, quite an impressive World Cup. A nice hosting job by the United States. I have been massively proven wrong. I thought for sure this was going to end up looking like egg on our face as a host nation simply because of the ticket issues, the prices, the current political climate, a lot going on that I thought this had a good chance of it blowing up, but a well-hosted event where the stadiums were full, the matches were great, soccer appears to be looked at in a different regard than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago here in the United States and North America. A well-done tournament, and the World Cup wraps up. And we wait to see when the United States will get another incarnation of that World Cup. I have a lot to get to today, a lot that I wanted to talk about, but one thing that has been in the news that I don't think I talked about on a prior edition of Sports Date before I took that 4-year-long hiatus. It wasn't really in the mainstream, so today I wanted to lead off the show talking about the WNBA and all of the goings-on with that, because I don't know, there's going to be good and bad when I talk about the WNBA today, but I don't know if I had to give it an overall rating how well they've been portrayed and how well they've done with their newfound status as what they've would like to be considered as a major sport, a major league. And I think a lot of the fees and the money coming in and going out would show that maybe they are. But I think they're closer to being on the cusp of being one of those major players in sports rather than actually being one. So I'll talk about the good and the bad with the WNBA. I'm going to lead off with the good. I'll start with the good stuff going on with the WNBA before getting into the bad, which me being an eternal pessimist, there's probably going to be more bad than there is good. But there is, in fact, good. The WNBA ratings are up. They are averaging, I think it's over over 1 million viewers a game, I believe, is the general trend. At least the ESPN matches, the ESPN games and the ABC games are averaging 1.3 million viewers, which is an increase over last year's numbers, which last year's numbers were record-breaking. There are signs that the league is, I wouldn't say it's near its peak, but it is definitely growing television-wise. Even USA Sports had 1.04 million viewers for a game on July 8th between the Indiana Fever and the Los Angeles Sparks. It appears to be a product that, much like other leagues, will earn more money in future television contracts. The problem is going to be, also much like other leagues, they're going to end up being so diversified on where you can watch these games that I don't know if it's going to be an immensely findable product for people who want to engage with it. If you have to go to ESPN and ABC, which is okay, those are relatively normal. Okay, but now you have USA Sports. All right, it's a cable network, but they're not new to the game. They used to host WWE Raw. They have sporting events. This happens. Okay, no big deal. Now you have Amazon Prime, another streamer in the game. Not an uncommon one, but still, that's another place that people have to go. It is less regionalized than things like baseball and even basketball to that degree, and hockey, to where you need a regional sports network in addition to the national streamer. So it's not to that degree yet, but that will be a tipping point for the league as it comes across. So the viewership is up. Things seem to be trending positively for that, which is a bit of a surprise. I think a lot of people would have anticipated that once the Caitlin Clark new phenomenon of when she joined the league would maybe make it wane a little bit, but it has not. There are over 1 million viewers per game on a lot of these platforms. Great news. Fantastic news. Another piece of good news for the WNBA. They didn't have a elongated stoppage dealing with this last labor deal, which I thought was going to be crazy messy. There was some back and forth with the commissioner and the Players Association that seemed to indicate that this could be a bad outcome for both parties, but they did it. They increased player salaries. It seems to be, and there's a revenue sharing. There's a salary cap going way up over the years. It all appears to be a net positive for the league as they grow and for the Players Association as they got more money. And that leads me to the next point with the players and the Players Association. I don't know how they're going to handle this surge in the league, because we are at a point in the WNBA now where they're looking to expand. We've seen, I want to say it's 2 to 4 expansion teams in the last 3 to 4 years. There's more coming. And I don't know that they have the player pool for it. But we'll get to that on the negative side. Like I said, I'm going to start with the good. We're going to try to give the positives here with the WNBA first before I go to some concerns that I have with the product and what's going on with them lately. They're gaining massive franchise fees as they expand. Both Golden State and Toronto, which are the two newest franchises in the WNBA, paid $75 million and $50 million. Golden State and Toronto paid $50 million. Portland, which is another one of the newest teams, paid $75 million. But there's more teams coming. The talk is Cleveland, Detroit, Philadelphia in the next 3 to 4 years. And they're paying $250 million each. You don't need to be a mathematician to see the way this goes. They want to grow because growing indicates more money coming in because of the franchise fees being paid, as well as new setups and new teams and new merchandise and new, fans filling new stadiums, right? You can elongate the season. That's how this all plays out. It's big, big money coming in. And for whatever you want to read online or where about that say, oh, the WNBA is nobody really wants that. This is showing us otherwise pretty clearly, as we see franchise fees absolutely boom. Now, we're not selling franchises, and it's nowhere near what things like the NBA and NFL, where the Seattle Seahawks just sold for $9 billion. Obviously, we're nowhere near that, but this is a remarkable turnaround and outcome for this league that for years was laughed at and disregarded, and it looked at as a subsidiary of the NBA, who financed the whole operation. And we're closer now than ever to this becoming a bigger talking point and a bigger player when we're talking about television rights coming up. So we'll see if the WNBA can continue this surge, I would say, in popularity, because I have some concerns, and that shouldn't be a surprise, I guess, to anybody. But there's some issues with the WNBA. I don't think they're killers, but there's some that could definitely be a hindrance to its long-term ability to grow and to keep on this trajectory. And one of them is its very own commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, who has shown over the past year plus that I don't know if she has what it takes to guide this league into its next stage. She has presided over the WNBA since 2019. Before that, she was a CEO. But she has shown some public incompetence over the last year or so and tried to big time some things that she doesn't need to be for a league that is kind of on the cusp. She had some outspoken remarks before the labor negotiations last year that really isolated her from the players and made her kind of persona non grata. I don't know if she's going to be able to overcome that long term, but hey, I've been proven wrong thus far. As this league, they've kept her around on that side, and they did come to a labor deal for 7 years. But then came this past week where she was scheduled to do an interview with the Dan Patrick Show, which is regarded as probably the premier sports radio show in any market and worldwide. Dan Patrick, obviously an icon in the sports radio and sports media industry over the years. And he was out at the golf tournament that celebrities and wealthy people go hobnob at Lake Tahoe. And she was scheduled to do an interview and then canceled on him last minute. And Dan Patrick is a pretty affable dude. So for him to have a nearly 5-minute segment discussing how that was the incorrect move is a huge mark on Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA. You can't be in the position you are in with trying to overcome a lot of other issues that I'm going to talk about in a few moments, publicly and PR-wise, and say, no thanks, I don't want to field your questions, and then go hit golf shots behind him. That's not how you play this area of your league. That's not, you don't get away with saying, I'm going to big time you, when a few years ago you would have been begging to be on any radio show or sports podcast, however you want to refer to it. Not the proper way to do it. I don't think she has the proper training for this part of the WNBA. I would not be surprised, now that this labor deal is done. There's no real massive issues coming up for the WNBA outside of whatever television rights contracts come up for the foreseeable future. I would think a couple more missteps, whether it be handling player issues, whether it be things like this, ignoring the Dan Patrick Show. And this is getting kind of excoriated from both sides. Dave Portnoy's calling her names, which that's not a big shock. Dan Patrick having issues with you, that's just not a good look. I don't know if Kathy Engelbert is long for this job. And that's okay. She guided him through a different phase. A lot of different leagues need a new voice, a new leader for different phases of your growth and through your expansion. I wouldn't be surprised to see within the next 1 to 2 years if she either steps down willingly or if they have to look for a different commissioner to move forward. Because of what I'm about to talk about as the second big issue I see with the WNBA right now. Because boy, oh boy, is this a PR nightmare they have going on. For the very first time, they are in the limelight. And the racist trolls have come for WNBA athletes. That shouldn't be a huge surprise because that happens with every league. Happens with players. It's just exacerbated by the social media era that we're now in. But it has taken on a new face. It's taken on a new light. Caitlin Clark has become, willing or unwilling, however you want to look at her, as kind of the face of online trolls and issues with the WNBA, because this has somehow become they don't like her because she's white thing among a certain section of the population that, I'll say is very dumb. It's very, very dumb. There are incidents with Caitlin Clark on the court and off the court where it appears to be that she maybe has some issues, some personality issues that maybe rub people the wrong way, even on her own team. She's had issues with her own coach and being on the bench with teammates and being suspended by that coach. It doesn't appear, and this is not out of the ordinary with the top athletes of their league. I don't think anybody would go back and look at Michael Jordan as saying, yeah, he was a super friendly guy. He's not. A lot of people watched The Last Dance and saw that is a guy who holds grudges. And that is a guy who takes competition to the next level. And I think we have a little bit of that with Caitlin Clark. But she has become the face for something more. And that is a real unique dynamic by fans who are making this more than what it actually is, which is an athlete performing at the highest level, having issues with other athletes. But Kathy Engelbert has a real racism problem on her hands with this league right now. And the most recent example is Las Vegas Aces star Chelsea Gray exposing a direct message she received on social media, and the internet seemingly immediately went to work and found out the man's place of employment. Within about 48 hours, that person was terminated from that place of employment. Alyssa Thomas, in recent memory from the Phoenix Mercury, had a massive influx of death threats and racism directed her way after a hard foul against Caitlin Clark. That was the image of the still image that was kind of taken out of context. I believe a lot of people remember from Alyssa Thomas standing up, and it looked like she was punching Caitlin Clark in the throat, which was not fully true, but the still image made it look a little worse than what it was. And probably the biggest case of this over the years has been former Chicago Sky forward and now part of the Atlanta Dream, Angel Reese, having just a ton of problems with people disliking her and using racism to back that up online, which is just another example of how it's gotten really nasty. And I know a lot of athletes and a lot of prominent athletes, men and women in all organizations and leagues, have had this happen. So this is a new problem for the WNBA being at the forefront like this. I'm not saying racism in the WNBA is a new problem, because it's not. But being at the forefront and being more popular is inherently going to breed more instances of this. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And a lot of these seem to revolve around the face of the league. Caitlin Clark, who arguably has done more than any other WNBA player in recent memory to elevate the prominence of the WNBA. A lot of the reason that the viewership numbers are what they are, a lot of the reason the popularity is here, is because of Caitlin Clark, who has now become such a divisive figure among the WNBA players themselves, among fans, that she has inadvertently stoked more racism fire than actual racism, it seems. People have decided to make her the marquee for their online arguments and their racial slurs in the name of sticking up for her. And she has done her part in terms of publicly speaking out. But even that has caused more divisiveness because a lot of people think she hasn't spoken out enough or loudly enough. I tend to be in that party. I think she has a loud voice to be able to say how unacceptable this is repeatedly as well, rather than one statement that may have taken a bit too long to actually release after all of the issues that had happened. But for being the forefront of the WNBA, the lack of wanting to be at the forefront, the lack of wanting to put her name and stamp on the idea of, hey, how unacceptable this all is a bit of a letdown to see. And this falls back to the Michael Jordan, both Republicans and Democrats buy shoes stuff that happened in the 90s. And Michael Jordan got away with it, right? Air Jordan as a brand is as popular as ever, maybe more so. Made him a billionaire. But not a lot of people look at Michael Jordan in the light of being an authority on what athletes can go through and speaking up for causes. The fear is that Caitlin Clark is going to fall into that same area that Michael Jordan did, when a lot of people who idolize her and look up to her, where she has a chance now to make a mark and stand up for and against people who are claiming her as their cause when she doesn't want to be that cause. She's shown no eagerness to be party to racial slurs. So the question's going to be, does she want to sacrifice some sales in terms of t-shirts and shoes or whatever, and fully and 100% without any qualifiers speak out against what is happening right now, because it's becoming more public. It's becoming a bigger news story. There's now talk about Adam Silver being involved in suspensions for WNBA players for these flagrant fouls against Caitlin Clark. And is Caitlin Clark a flopper, which the NBA has its own issues with? But the fact that it's filtering down to the this is going to end up being a bigger story than it needs to be, with African-American star players and Caitlin Clark and sections of fanhood that have created a level of divisiveness that probably shouldn't happen, or definitely doesn't need to happen, for a league looking to simply move forward and become more popular and grow. And that brings me to my last point about the WNBA, because with growth comes growing pains. Everybody knows that. But I question at this point, with as many new franchises as they are adding, have added, and are looking to add, if the player pool is there, are we diluting the product far too much to justify all of these new franchises in order to look like Scrooge McDuck with money signs in their eyeballs as pupils? We're not that far removed, and this has happened, I believe, multiple times now over the past season. Top 10 draft picks from the previous 1 to 2 seasons being cut. Haley Van Lith, a big name, seemingly performance related. Another one this past week, Chennedy Carter. She seems to have a personality issue, though, possibly, because one of the premier offensive talents in the WNBA cut with no real public remark about why, outside of that they're moving on from her. This is the second team this has happened with now. But I don't know if the talent pool currently is there, if we're cutting top 10 draft picks, or if the roster size is there. Would the WNBA be better served by expanding the rosters and not simply adding more franchises in the search for more money? It seems like we have to accept now the WNBA is trying to play with the big boys in terms of franchise fees. And the question will now be going forward, will the product inherently suffer because of that? One more item I wanted to get to today before unleashing the take volcano with some pent-up takes that have been happening, that I've had over the last week or so. I wanted to talk about the Home Run Derby. Home Run Derby for Major League Baseball took place last week, always the night before the All-Star game. The Derby has come under fire in recent years, and probably rightfully so. But I'm sitting here thinking today, I don't think the Home Run Derby has changed or is the problem. I just think our viewing habits have changed just enough, and I think the Home Run Derby simply doesn't hold the same charm that it did 10 to 15 years ago, or definitely during the steroid era. Players don't seem to value it as much, and why would you? It's a show. It's probably a bit tiring. It's essentially batting practice, but you're not doing this batting practice for coaching purposes or to fix something in your swing. You're doing it for a television audience. Sure, there's a cash prize, and that's great. It's $1 million. And Jordan Walker from the St. Louis Cardinals, who won it, the prize for the Home Run Derby was actually more than his contract for the season. It's a great story. The Derby was outstanding drama this year. But they're going through tweaks thinking that the Derby is the problem, when, again, I don't think that it is. I just don't think we care as much anymore. It's a 3-hour-long batting practice session. I think after a while, you lose the ability to care as much. And people can point to television ratings about it, and people can point to the ho-humness of the people partaking in it. I don't know that it needs to make any significant changes. I feel like it just needs to slide into its new role as an event to fill the stands and have kids shag fly balls the night before the All-Star game. As good as it was this year, it was on Netflix. It's already being marketed to such a smaller section of society than it was even 2 to 4 years ago, where it was on ESPN or television. And people will look back with nostalgia like they do everything. 90s and early aughts nostalgia bait is very, very popular now. But that doesn't mean it was all good. Do we really miss Chris Berman screaming back 100 times every swing? It feels nitpicky to me. The home run derby is fine. It is what it is. They've made the subtle changes with the rounds, and then they had the clock with unlimited pitches. We're going back to limited pitches. I don't know what will work or won't work. Netflix seems happy with it. Major League Baseball has received, a crazy amount of dollars for the fees to air this thing. But I don't know what they can do differently to make this format more accessible to, or more watchable for people. It seems fine to me, and the outrage over the home run derby seems a bit overwrought and unnecessary, if you ask me. I think it was fine. I think it's going to continue to be fine. It's just not for me anymore, and I think that's okay too. Wanted to rattle off a few quick takes from the Take Volcano before I get out of here on this episode of Sports Tate. So let the Take Volcano overflow here very quickly. First one the first hot take I have today. This is going to upset some food purists. I know there's some food weirdos out there who are, a part of meat Facebook groups and, talk about if there's any type of well done in the order, you're looking down on the person above you or next to you. Here's one for you today. The McDonald's buffalo sauce that you get with their chicken nuggets is a tier 1 buffalo sauce. There, I said it. It has the best flavor profile of buffalo without being overwhelming to the senses and making you sweat. People who eat hot food is another hot take for you. People who love and adore and say, I can eat the hottest food out there, you're dumb. Okay? That's not a point of pride. You should enjoy your food. It shouldn't make you sweat and your mouth hurt when you eat it. And that brings me to my second overflowing take from the Take Volcano today. Bone-in chicken is always worse than boneless chicken. That goes for the wings. That goes for, the thighs, the drumsticks. No, they're always worse than the chicken breast. Okay? Always. It's fatty. It's stringy. It's tendony. It's, the flavor. It's so much more rich and it's so much more filling. No, it's not. No, you're just saying that. Okay, you can make juicy white meat chicken on the grill and I don't have to dig around bones and miss a bunch of meat because there's fat calluses all around it. Terrible. Bone-in chicken. Overrated always. The next one up, and this has been in the news. Enough's enough already, people. The daylight savings time arguments are stupid. There are legitimately people out there 2 times per year saying, my sleep schedule's all screwed up. I won't be able to function because of daylight savings time. Nobody cares. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting. So now here we go with the performative nonsense once again. Here we have the United States House of Representatives voting to eliminate daylight saving time. Why? We do this all the time. If you look back, you can use the Wayback Machine on the internet, or you can just go ahead and Google how many times this has been brought before Congress to eliminate daylight saving time. 1 hour is not affecting your life that much, and it's improving your life in the mornings during the winter. Who cares? Enough's enough with the performative nonsense about daylight saving time. It's not. If it does change, we're going to have the same contingent of people arguing in the next 2 years that it needs to change back. The next overflowing take today, I was having this discussion this morning. Aerosmith. Overrated. While their hits were mega hits, and they were a premier band of the 1980s, I think their music itself is not the memorable part. People remember Steven Tyler. And people remember his unique voice and his appearance, I guess, and the way he acted on stage. And I think Aerosmith was a little bit buoyed and brought back to the public forefront by Don't Want to Miss a Thing from Armageddon in the late 90s. A soundtrack song brought them back to the forefront in the late 90s because their musical relevance and their music high point was 15 years before that. Aerosmith, way overrated. And the last take I have for you today on the Hot Take Volcano, I had to get one sports take in. And this one might make Brother Mike a little perturbed, any Philly fans. But I think the Philadelphia Phillies are going to miss the Major League Baseball playoffs. They're in a division with the Miami Marlins making a run, a pretty good division, multiple teams over 500, and yet they are sitting second in the NL East with a negative run differential. A lot of big names, some underperforming. They had the All-Star game. Right now they're sitting in second place in their division in the second wild card spot, but a really streaky Marlins team in a National League that appears to be a bit top-heavy. I think they are ripe to miss the playoffs this year. The Philadelphia Phillies, that would be a massive disappointment. The Phillies missing the playoffs with that payroll, that roster, and that level of talent to go up and down. I think they are going to miss it. I don't think they have the youth, the depth, and they have a hot young team in the Miami Marlins making their way in the division for them. I don't think they make the playoffs. If you have a hot take of your own that you'd like me to rate, that we can throw on top of the Take Volcano, again, that phone number and voicemail box that you can either text or leave a message, 424-307-5763. That's 424-30-SK-POD, or you can drop us one anywhere on social media at Steve and Kyle, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or on Blue Sky as well. The last thing I wanted to get to before I get out of here today is what I'm obsessing over. Last time was the movie Obsession. That is now out on digital. Please check it out. If you are okay or enjoy horror movies, please check that out. This week, I have been absolutely steamrolling, trying to control myself a little bit, while my wife and I watch the final season of The Bear. Now, I don't know if there's been a more controversial show that's been released in a long time than The Bear. The show that entered the comedy category, that is pretty categorically not meant to be funny. Yet here we are with it winning multiple awards for Jeremy Allen White and the direction and everything. And this thing suffered a public rebuking for seasons 3 and 4. Like, rarely you will see a television show suffer. But I am here to tell you right now, season 5, the final season, back better than ever. Oh my goodness, this reminds me of the early episodes of The Bear. An absolute star-studded effort by the cast. And I'm not even talking about Jeremy Allen White. He almost feels like a secondary character this season of The Bear. The tension and the minuscule scope of this season of The Bear absolutely gives it a clenched fist, sweaty palms vibe the whole season throughout. Can't recommend it enough. It does have laughs. It feels like the characters that make you laugh were inserted just to make you laugh. They don't really fit with the other vibe of the show, but can't recommend. If you gave up on The Bear after seasons 1, 2, 3, or whatever, I cannot recommend enough. Please go back. Give it another chance just so you can watch season 5. I think this may be the best season that the show has had in its duration. Again, The Bear is what I'm obsessing over this week. You can drop yours again at Steve and Kyle, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. That phone number 424-307-5763. Thanks everybody for tuning in to this newest episode of Sports Tate. Can't wait to do it again. We'll talk to you again in a couple weeks.